Hey, Jamie. I want you to talk to me. Hey! Talk to me.
Today, Jamie is 30, on the 30th, the Champagne anniversary. To him I toast. What do I feel? You know he's looking down. How else do you get a day like today? Today is a day of enjoying James's life and celebrating it with him, because I know he's here.
It feels like family.
This is my first year.
Third year for me.
This is our fourth year.
5 years, 6 years?
13 years.
When something like this happens, you gotta stick together.
Jamie was a straight-A student, good-looking 17-year-old. It seemed like he had the whole world and his life ahead of him. And something happened. I wish I knew. It's a day to reflect, to remember, to wish.
I think he would be honored. I think he would want to play. I think he might have changed his mind.
Go! Get out of here!
My name is Mike Farrell. I'm a feature story producer here at TSN. I'm usually the one behind the scenes, making the decisions that shape the stories you see, the silent narrator, if you will. But this time, this story, it's different.
Come on. Yeah, buddy!
Every June 30th for the past 13 years, I've been duffing drives and missing putts at the James Peak Memorial Classic.
What's your most comfortable club? 7-iron? Putter? Putter? You sure about that?
This is my best friend, Sean Peak. He's actually going to be the best man at my wedding. And we've been friends for as long as I can remember. Growing up, Chateau Peak was the go-to hangout for our group. I was over there at least a couple times a week, which meant I got to know the whole Peak family, including Sean's older brother, James. I always remember he was a bit of a smart ass.
He's very big, yeah, very smart ass. He used to pick on me all the time.
He had a very dry sense of humor, really smart, really quick to comment, like really quick-witted.
And if you weren't listening closely enough, sometimes it flew right over your head until you started thinking about it, and you'd get a big smile on your face because he just zing one on you. Beside him, the terror himself, the holy terror, James Patrick Peak.
The person that annoys me is my little brother, Sean. When he annoys me, I beat him up.
When James was in grade 7, like all the kids at our elementary school, he did a project called My Life. It was essentially an autobiography, where you were asked to write about your family, your friends, and the things you like doing.
I love my family a whole bunch. They always keep my support me.
I love any kind of sports, especially golf, hockey, baseball, soccer, and tennis.
I would never admit to him, but he was better than me at most sports. He was a fantastic hockey player, loved hockey.
As he grew up, he really loved golf. It became more of his main sport than hockey did.
In sports, we often hear the term, on paper. On paper, this is a mismatch. On paper, this team should dominate. Well, on paper, James Peake was the prototypical Canadian teenager. He was good-looking, popular. He was the captain of his high school hockey team, even an honor roll student. He had absolutely everything going for him. But all too often, what's on paper is never the whole story.
Came home, and that was the day I found him. It was the worst day of my life.
I'm going to try today to take a painful walk back in time to 1999.
You know, when James was 16, 17 years old, let's say, and if someone said to you that your brother was depressed at that time, what would you have said to them?
No way.
I would never have imagined.
What signs do you see now looking back and knowing what you know?
James was an impeccable dresser and then went through a phase of not caring what he wore. He lost his appetite for a while, and then it came back.
I didn't know the signs. He had signs.
But you never want to believe that there's anything wrong with a child of yours. And I think that's probably the strongest message I could ever give anybody. Don't assume anything.
I actually came home early, kind of skipped class. There's a note on the cabinet, and we had a stereo system with a front glass. It was broken. There was, I think, 2 bottles of champagne finished. On the note that I read. He was in the backyard, in the garage. It was the worst day of my life.
Sean was just 13 years old at the time. He called his parents at work and told them to get home right away. His mom arrived first.
She came home, and at this point I knew where he was, but I didn't want to tell her because I didn't want her to see him like that. I waited until my dad got home, and I said, "You might want to check the garage."
I started looking around the property, and I found him in the garage, hanging. And so you do what you can to try and bring your son back to life. That's what I remember. And I remember hearing the sirens in the background, and I remember giving him mouth to mouth until someone showed up 10, 15 minutes later.
I remember coming in through the front door, and my mom was on the floor. She must have collapsed, and she was just screaming, my baby's gone. And I think that's when I understood. Everything after that is a blur. It was the hardest day of my life.
When word of what happened started to filter out, our whole community was in shock, me included. No one, and I mean no one, saw this coming.
I felt so stupid for not knowing. As a mother, I should have known. I should have done better. I failed.
You know, if I didn't see this coming, then do I really know any of my children?
I was mad at him for not feeling he could come to us and tell us what was bothering him. I think he felt that he was on this pedestal. Everybody, looked up to him. I felt that he couldn't let anybody down and say, I have a problem.
I remember being at the house the day after it happened. It seemed like everyone I knew was there. I remember thinking that the family was coping pretty well, that they were strong. But that was only on the surface.
I couldn't be alone. I couldn't drive. I couldn't concentrate enough to drive. I was just existing. I wasn't living. I was just existing.
How do you live? How do you get up in the morning after something like that happens?
I have a clear recognition of a day when I woke up and I said, I have 3 other children and I have a wife. I'm still a father. You have to be dad. You have to have the strength and show the strength to the others. And I guess it was at that time that I started to turn and said, you know what? We got to get this out in the open.
There were many kids that committed suicide before James, and the parents hid it. And I thought, you know what? People need to know that this is happening. Like, I didn't want another kid or another family to go through this.
And with that, the James Peak Memorial Classic was born. A tournament to be held every year on James's birthday to raise funds and awareness for mental health.
Thanks for your money. We appreciate it. We're sold out every year. We have waiting lists.
The more people that we touch and that we actually get the message out to, the better.
After the golf, the Peak family invites all the golfers, friends, and family back to their home.
Today, Jamie is 30. On the 30th, the Champagne anniversary. To him I toast.
And it's here, for the last 13 years, that I've watched Randy Peak relive his nightmare.
I'm going to try today to take a painful walk back in time to 1999. Jamie was a straight-A student, good-looking 17-year-old, captain of his school hockey team, lots of friends. It seemed like he had the whole world and his life ahead of him. But obviously he had so much pain, and the pain overwhelmed him, and he didn't know how, or that he even could reach out to his close family. He just knew that the pain he was in was unbearable. In a split second, in a moment of time, that decided that the only way to end that pain was to take his life.
Why get up and speak every year the way that you do?
I don't want a parent to go through what I went through. That's why.
Usually Randy is the only speaker, but this year, that changed. Alex DiGiacomo has been playing in the tournament since 2011. And if any of us needed proof that the Peak family's message is getting through, well, Alex and his brother Greg are it.
Moral support. Moral support? Moral support. That's my brother, by the way. I very seriously considered taking my life. Yeah. I remember coming home from school that day when I had just told my good friend how I was feeling. And naturally, I freaked him out. How I obviously thought, you know, not being around anymore was the only viable option. So he told my brother.
I was scared, then I was angry. Like, how could this possibly be? You know, he has a loving family, support. I just wanted to kind of grab him and shake him. And I called up Ryan Peak.
I remember telling Greg, well, that's great. I was saying, you don't know how lucky you are if he's telling you this.
Alex and Greg then went to Ryan's house and talked into the early morning hours. It was the first time Alex had opened up about how he was feeling.
And it seriously felt like after that night it was already happening. It was already getting to where I wanted to be, getting to who I wanted to be, to what I wanted to become. Depression, or any mental illness, is just that, an illness. When you're sick, or you're tired, you tell someone about it.
For a person to do that in front of that crowd was absolutely amazing. You know, people like that are my heroes.
You know, I went up and I gave Mr. and Mrs. Peak a hug, and I gave Ryan a hug, and I said to each one of them, thank you for saving my brother's life.
In 13 years, the James Peak Memorial Classic has raised almost $300,000. It's helped to set up mental health programs and a clinic at our local hospital, named after James. The Peak family has helped countless people to come forward and deal with their issues in a healthy way.
This program has saved my life.
Most are complete strangers. Most, but not all. This is Mackenzie Richmond Hill Hospital, where a lot of the tournament's funds have gone. Today, I wanted to get some shots of Michelle and Randy touring the facilities. As I sat them down with a counselor to go over the clinic's program, things took a surprising turn.
In some ways, just seeing James's name there in a really weird, bittersweet way was a comfort to me.
I had no idea, but Michelle had been struggling on and off with depression of her own ever since James's death. And just a few days before our shoot at the clinic, things hit an all-time low.
I knew that if I didn't get help, there would be trouble.
She told her mother and me. To Michelle's credit, she recognized the symptoms and spoke up.
Randy and Carolyn then took Michelle to Mackenzie Richmond Hill Hospital, the very place they had been funding for so many years. She then checked into the clinic, named after her brother.
I felt maybe like my big brother was taking care of me a little bit. It's a really hard thing to think about because obviously the reason that he's there, that his name is there, is because we lost him. So
You're never a failure in a parent's eyes, no matter what. And you need to be able to reach out. And if we have a message for anybody, it's always to reach out. It probably hits me like this because our son couldn't reach out. So to see Michelle reach out, it's very gratifying. The most important people in my life would have to be my mother and father. That's a nice thing to say. They are the most important in my life because they support me a whole bunch and are always pushing me further than expectations.
And that brings us back to James's school project, My Life. It's almost eerie to look at it now, knowing what we know. Chapters like feelings and the real me take on a whole different meaning. And then there's the book's final chapter, My Future.
I have many dreams and ambitions for when I get out of school. I would like to be a doctor because I think it would be fun to save people's lives. Hockey is the profession that I would prefer the most. If I could play pro hockey, I would be in heaven.
Do you ever think of what he would be like as a 30-year-old younger brother now, and what do you think about?
It's tough because I have a kid and he's never met it.
What's your favorite color, Madeline?
Purple.
As a storyteller, I typically look for stories in which people have to deal with some sort of challenge in their lives. And then they overcome it. In other words, stories with a happy ending. But this is not one of those stories. No tournament or amount of fundraising will ever bring James back. But while you won't find happiness in the way this story ends, you will find something else. Hope.
It's okay to admit that you're depressed. There's people out there to help. You don't have to have the one-way ticket.
As a television producer, oftentimes we do a bunch of different stories and all these different types of pieces, and you say, well, this is a sad story and this is a happy story. But what kind of story is your story?
Tragic in the sense you've lost a child. Uplifting in the sense that the support of friends and community. Uplifting to know that there is light at the end of the tunnel. We have a story that crosses all sorts of gambits as far as I'm concerned. And quite frankly, there's only one aspect that really matters. And that is, can we stop another one from happening?
I want you to talk to me. Hey! Talk to me.